Welcome to the Historical Romance Sampler Podcast. I'm your host, Katherine Grant, and each week I introduce you to another amazing historical romance author. My guest reads a little sample of their work, and then we move into a free-ranging interview. If you like these episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the Historical Romance Sampler wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Now, let's get into this week's episode. I am thrilled to host a very special episode of the Historical Romance Sampler today, an interview with icon Beverly Jenkins. Ms. Bev started publishing in 1994, and since then, she has led the charge for inclusive romance. Her work has been a constant darling of reviewers, fans, and peers alike, garnering accolades from the likes of the Wall Street Journal, People magazine, and NPR. She is the recipient of the 2017 Romance Writers of America Nora Roberts Lifetime Achievement Award, as well as the 2016 Romantic Times Reviewer's Choice Award for Historical Romance. She has been nominated for the NAACP Image Award in Literature and was featured both in the documentary Love Between the Covers and on CBS Sunday Morning. She has even been the namesake for a character in a historical romance novel by Eva Lee. So, Ms. Bev, I want to start. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today.
Oh, thank you for the invite. I would tell folks I was sick last month and I sort of slept through forgot all about it. I was just dead. So
That's all
she's
good.
been just wonderful. Catherine's been wonderful to me. So whatever she wants me to do, I'm here to do it.
Whatever you need to do to recover, we want you to do.
Yeah, I'm feeling good now.
Good. So, you've said
Mm,
before that you did not consider yourself a writer,
mm-mm.
and yet here you are.
Yeah,
So, first of all, do you consider yourself a writer yet?
Yeah, I guess I do. I mean, I've been doing this now for 30 years, 31 years. And I don't think I'm qualified to do anything else at this point. And plus, I love what I do. So, it's kind of you like what you're doing, you look forward to the next chapter or next book. Met some lovely people along the way, both authors and readers. So it's all good, I think. Yeah, I guess I do consider myself a writer now. Yeah.
Do you have a sense, was that like within the last 5 years or the last 20 years or?
I don't know. After the first book, excuse me, they kept sending me contracts. I kept sending them books. They kept sending me more contracts. I kept sending them more books. So now 30 years later, we're still doing that. So, I guess, I don't know. My girlfriends often tell me that I have no sense of my impact
Hmm.
on the genre because I'm just writing kissing books, right? You know, I'm I'm not trying to I'm trying to write the stories that I would have loved to read growing up
Mm-hmm.
because there was nothing in the marketplace that reflected me or looked like me or, my mom or my sisters. And I'm just trying to write books. Toni Morrison's got that quote. I know I'm going to mess it up, but she said that, if there's a book out there that you want to read that isn't out there, then you need to write it.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel. And I guess, a lot of accolades along the way. And I try not to pay any attention to that. Because, your heads get so big, you can't get through the door. Uh, but to be known for writing good stories, I think that's all I really want out of
Mm-hmm.
this whole quote unquote legendary life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, who were some of were you reading romance before you started writing romance?
Yeah, I mean, I read everything. I mean, there was really no quote unquote designated romance when I was coming up. You had Mary Stewart, you had Victoria Holt, you had who else? I also read Louis L'Amour and I read, Shakespeare and I read Sherlock Holmes, and I read, everything, I'm one, and I've told this story before. I'm one of those kids that read everything in my neighborhood library, from the kiddie books to the adult books. So romance as a pre-genre, because that's really what it was back then, was just one of the many, many, many things that I read. But I'd always loved a good love story. I mean, there on the screen, like I said, nothing in print. But my sisters and I, we loved the Rock Hudson and the Doris Day movies and James Garner and all of that. And we had romance in our lives with our parents and our aunts and our uncles, and we all, if you go to church, you have that little old couple that's been married for 50 years who is still holding hands coming out of the church, going across the parking lot to their car to go home for dinner. So, the romance is there, even though it wasn't reflected in the major culture. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
did you write your first manuscript thinking, I'm going to sit down and write a kissing book? Or were you writing a story that you found interesting and then found a publisher who
I
wanted a
was
kissing book?
I was writing strictly for me because this was God. I think I started Nightsong back in the 70s.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I'm an old lady. And this was BC before children. And so my husband, who played tennis in high school, he was a printer back then when we first got together. So he would come home from work, wash off the ink and go play tennis. And I was working at the Michigan State University Library in the graduate library. So I could go down to cataloging and grab, whatever was on a card, as long as I brought it back and it, wasn't dirty or cleaned, or, wasn't dropped in the mud or whatever.
Yeah.
So I would come home and read and write, working on this story for me. So fast forward about maybe 10 years, 15 years. I was working for Park Davis Pharmaceuticals in their library. And one of my colleagues had just written a sweet romance, and she had just gotten that published. We were celebrating her. I was telling her about this little romance that I was working on. And she said, bring it in. I've told this story 1,000 times. Um, bring it in. She looked at it. She said, I needed to get it published. And, this is before the market was closed. I'm like, where? Where am I going to get this published? So I tell people she, harassed me every day. Find you an agent, find blah, blah, blah. So some kind of way I found Vivian Stevens. I have no idea how I found Vivian. She's my first agent. She had gotten out of publishing. And I sent her my little raggedy manuscript. And she called me less than a week later, said she wanted to represent me. And then, like 1,000 rejections later, Ellen Edwards at Avon bought the book on my husband's birthday. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I told the story. I told the story at one of the RW. We were having a hell of a fight that day. I mean, I don't know what we were fighting about. We were fighting up and down the steps and the necks rocking and all of that. And the phone rang. And it was Ellen. And she said she wanted to buy my book. So time out on the fight, and my husband said, I guess I got to take your little butt to dinner. I said, yes, you do. So then it was published a year later, which was Nightsong, my first book. So it was the summer of Black Love, because that was also the summer that Arabesque published their first African American contemporaries
Hmm.
with Betty Ford and Donna Hill and those ladies. But I was the only one doing historicals. So now what, 30 years later, I'm still, but then I've been in a lot of sandboxes. I've been blessed to have a publisher that trusts my writing.
Hmm.
So historical, I've done contemporaries, I've done YA, women's fiction. I'm glad that I was not just relegated to one box, one sandbox.
Yeah. One question I have for you that might tie into that is how do you maintain the stamina or finding inspiration for writing book after book over 30 years?
I have no trouble with stories. I have what I call the green room in my head, and there are characters in there that are sitting there doing this. When's my turn? When's my turn, lady? Come on, lady. Whereas I have some girlfriends who are writers who have a really hard time trying to come up with something different. but we all bring different stuff to the table. They may be stronger in other areas than I am, but I have no trouble coming up with, whether I can turn it in on time. Now that's a issue sometimes, but I got stories when when my last day on earth comes around, I'll be banging on the edge of on the inside of the urn going, wait, 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 I got, four more stories I need to write, So I think it's part of the imagination, and I have no trouble coming up with stories, which is good for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
what about maintaining a career part of the authoring for 30 years? Do you think there's a secret sauce for you and your peers who are still publishing 30 years later, as opposed to people who maybe started at the same time as you and aren't still publishing?
Yeah. I don't know how or why that is. People drop out, I think, for different reasons. Some people have health issues. Some people have family issues. Some people have personal issues. And then there's some of us, like I said, who are not qualified to do anything else. So we're just, writing, 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 writing. It's a it's a blessing. At least that's the way I look at it, to be able to do this for 30 years and still have people buying your books. I mean, that's the biggest thing, and even though, I've been at this a long time, I still worry. Are they gonna throw tomatoes at me this time? Is it gonna be terrible? And I try and make an effort not to write the same book twice.
Mhm.
I give my readers a different flavor, a different swagger, a different a different theme, every time. And because they will be truthful with me, which is a good thing.
Yes.
They will tell me if I'm writing crap, so because you want that. But I've been lucky so far. Not too many tomatoes have been thrown my way.
Well, not just lucky. I think there's a fair amount of talent and skill that goes behind it too.
Well, you try and be, humble about it,
Yeah.
and not, well, yes, it's because I'm this and this and this and this. No, no, you're only as good as your last book. So
Well, and have you ever had to put out a book because of contract deadlines and stuff? Have you ever had to put out a book that you wished you had more time to work on? And you don't have to name it, but do you have advice
you know,
for authors
yeah, yeah, I
who
think we
might have
all
that?
we all would like a redo sometimes on some things. I have some books that I know are absolutely perfect and I could not have done more with. Some that I wish I had had another 2 weeks to play around with it. It would have been a lot bigger or a lot whatever. But yeah, I think but you can't go back. So you just have to sort of take the lessons that you learned or didn't learn and put those into the stories going forward. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you're iconic for one reason, for the level of research that you put into your books, especially historical.
Mhm.
Where does the research fit into your creative
Oh,
process?
well, I want to tell the story. I call it edutainment, entertainment and education, because I think one of the functions of art is to educate. One of the functions is to entertain, and one is to educate, which is why I love writing romance, because you can do that in so many different ways with romance. So to be able to tell the true story of American history in ways that it hasn't been told before, whether we're dealing with women, whether we're dealing with African Americans, whether we're dealing with, Chinese Americans or Native Americans, as told through their gaze, I think you get a truer vision of history. And then make that the background for a great love story. And you have a perfect story, at least in my mind. And there's
And
no test on Friday, So
absolutely.
yeah,
And so when you're thinking about like the next book that you're going to write, do you begin by doing, a month's worth of research and then coming up with the story?
each book's different. I'm a pantser. So each book is different. Sometimes it's a kernel of a story. Sometimes it's a character. Sometimes it's a historical incident. I just sort of go with whatever the muse gives me and then try and figure out what the muse wants me to say. Because if I had to, I love being a pantser because if I had to write out everything and outline, and for me, it takes all the energy out of the story and I'm
Mhm.
ready to go on to the next book. So this way, I am as surprised as the readers are. Oh, this is
Yeah,
what we're going to do. Okay, okay. Hold on, let me catch up. So, but yeah, I like being a pantser. I like being a pantser because, like I said, it's more fun for me this way. Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. And sometimes that gut reaction that you get tells you whether this is a good idea or oh, this
yeah,
is boring. Need something more exciting.
yeah. Because if your eyes are going to glaze over, then the reader's eyes are going to glaze over. And if you're going to cry, then the readers are going to cry. And if you're going to laugh, more than likely they're going to laugh too. So I try and I write for me basically, and then see what happens when the if the readers get the same kind of a reaction when the book comes to them.
Historicals on the High Seas Cruise is a journey of a lifetime traveling to fascinating Key West and breathtaking Bimini in the Bahamas. 4 nights aboard the beautiful Celebrity Reflection, June 16th to 20th, celebrating the readers and writers of historical fiction and romance. Hosted by me, award-winning narrator Joel Frumkin, with special guest, social media sensation, historical tailor Zach Pinsent. Join a crew of best-selling authors, including Sherry Thomas and Stacey Reed, for fascinating panels, historical crafts and games, author-hosted excursions, and, of course, period dress-up nights. An intimate, boutique BookCon experience with the rich resort relaxation offered by Celebrity Cruises, with world-class entertainment and food, delightful destinations, and an intimate, immersive celebration of the books we love. Visit historicalsonthehighseas.com to learn more and to book yourself the back in time of your life.
Do you love to find historical romance book deals? Or are you an author who would like to boost a new release or discount to readers who love historical romance? Historical Romance Book Deals was made for you. Historical Romance Book Deals is a daily newsletter that showcases free books, discounts, and new releases. It's great for readers to find new books and for authors to spread the word about their books. Authors, while HRBD grows their list, you can submit your books for free. Simply visit historicalromancebookdeals.com and use the coupon code HRBDFree. Hey, audiobook listeners! Have you checked out the official Historical Romance Sampler Season 1 playlist on Libro.fm? On the playlist, you'll find historical romances you heard here first that are available to listen to on Libro.fm. Plus, if you're not yet a Libro.fm subscriber, use code HISTORICAL to get extra credits in your first month. Head on over to the Historical Romance Sampler Linktree to learn more. Of all the different eras and pockets of history that you have researched and written about, do you have a
Mhm.
favorite?
I think the whole 19th century is my favorite because there's so many different stories to tell that haven't been told or haven't been told fully, whether you're talking about, the years leading up, whether you're talking about abolition or the Civil War or Reconstruction or redemption or the move west or the move north, whether you're dealing with the Hispanics and the blacks in California, or whether you're dealing with the small towns in Kansas. I mean, there's just a wealth of stories out there told from a different point of view that you can have fun with and educate and entertain and all those other good things that makes a good story. So like I said, I love what I do. I really do.
That's wonderful. I mean, I'm sure that's one of the reasons why your books keep speaking to us is because you love it.
Yeah, I hope so.
Now, one of the things that's going around the internet these days is that historical romance is dead.
Yeah.
Is this a cycle that you have seen before? Have you heard this before?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We've heard this before, but nobody has said this to the readers of
Mm,
historical romance. You got a lot of pushback from some of the publishers. You're getting pushback from the little kids, book talk and TikTok and all of the clock people. But you're not getting that from the mainstream readers, historical readers. They're
Mm-hmm.
waiting for more stuff. And I don't know. I think it's something that's going to come back and bite them in the butt, publishers,
Mm-hmm.
because the community is so large. And a lot, from what I'm seeing, have stopped reading because of how different the books are now, as opposed to the way that they were constructed and written, say, even 10 years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think those of us who write historicals are going to continue to write historicals, whether it's going to be romantasy or whether it's going to be paranormal or whatever it's going to be, it's going to still be with a historical view. Because, like I said, I'm not qualified to do anything else. So I'm going to do that. I like some dragons. I'm going to do some dragons. But then I can also write suspense. And because I've got suspense titles that I've been promising my readers for the last 15 years, lying to them about having this book done. So as long as, as long as I got a publisher, I'll write something.
Yeah.
Historicals are my first love. They're my
Yeah.
first love. Yeah.
Do you look back and think, do you have any observations on how your writing has changed? And or do you have observations on how your writing has remained constant to itself?
Yeah. I think the writing has changed in who gets to be in the story. Because back when I started, the heroines were mostly were all white, size 6. Most of the men were alpha holes. And now you have just this wealth of diverse characters, all identities, women and men doing different stuff, men writing, um, stories for people who don't really identify as love stories. So I think that's a wonderful thing because it puts, regardless of the political machinations going on right now, it puts romance, I think, ahead of a lot of genres in who gets to participate and who gets to be seen on page.
Yeah.
I think we lead the way in that. But there's still a lot to do. It's not perfect. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had to burn down RWA. But like I said, I think we lead. Still a lot to do. My writing has changed in the sense that I don't rely as much on the research as I used to because I've already educated my readers, and
Right.
I don't have to hit them over the head anymore, or myself, with like what's happening in Louisiana in 1877, or I don't have to do the Great Exodus of 1879 anymore because we've already done that. So I can take the stories, make those parts of it the foundation, and not have to teach because they already know. So it makes it makes for less of a historical, but you still get that foundation and you still get hopefully a great story. So yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
really interesting. And can you tell us anything about what we can expect from you
Well,
in the next year?
right now, the book 12 of the Blessing series coming out in August, and that's the last book of the series. And for the first time in 30 years, I have no contract, which is kind of cool because, my agent and I can, play with stuff. We can, float stuff that, I've been maybe sitting on or, seeing who's interested in different parts of the Beverly Jenkins universe, or as the kids say, the multiverse, and see what happens. I'm kind of excited. I'm I'm home for, the first time really. And, I think I did 14 flights last year.
Oy.
I'm too old for this, girl. You know, it's like, so we're going to see what happens. My birthday was last weekend.
Oh, happy
Oh,
belated.
thank you. Thank you. So it's kind of exciting because I got a lot of stuff in the pipeline that I would love to do. But we're gonna keep it quiet and see and wait and see what my agent comes up with. But she's got great ideas too. So between
Yeah.
the two of us, we may conquer the world before this is over. Who knows?
Well, are you going to use this time to just literally write for yourself since no one is waiting on a book for you? I mean,
Yeah,
we are all waiting on a book from you, but
I know.
you're
I
not
know. I know.
contractually obligated.
And people are asking for, because I haven't done a historical in a while, in at least what, 2 years, 3 years. So people want historicals. People want the suspense book that I've been lying to them about for the last 20 years. I want to play in the Dragon sandbox because I'm a big fantasy reader. So I don't really know what we're going to do. We're going to see who bites. We're going to put the line out there and bait it with all kinds of stuff and see who nibbles and
Yeah.
go from there. But yeah, I want to write for me, but I also got to pay my mortgage. So, that there is that. But my agent has a good indie shop in her agency too. So
I
that's
was going to
always,
say you could clean up.
yeah, that's also, on the line too, is to be able to do it indie. So we'll see. As I got less time ahead of me than I got behind me. So you want to try and have fun, but still pay the mortgage. But also, like I said, have fun. Because that's what
Yeah.
this is about. It's about the journey. It's not necessarily about the destination. So
Yeah.
see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, speaking of having fun, I'd like to close it out by playing my game Love It or Leave It.
Okie dokie.
All right. Do you love it or leave it? Protagonists meet in the first 10% of the story.
Yeah, because I don't. I'm trying to think of my books. Yeah, everybody meets within the first. Yeah, I do. Because you want to get the story started. You don't be like, well, what are they doing? Where is he or where is she? So yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Love it or leave it, dual point of view narration.
Definitely. Because when I started in 94, everybody wrote dual. And now we got these new, and I guess they're not new anymore, but these newer, younger editors who don't like that for some reason. But I love it. I mean, I want to see her reaction. I want to hear his reaction. I don't want a whole chapter from his point of view, a whole chapter from her point of view. It's they've ruined romance.
All right. Love it or leave it, third person past tense.
God, what is that? I don't even know. I don't know what is third person past tense.
Like he said, she said, instead of he says, she says, or I say.
Oh, okay. I can take it or leave it. Just give me a good story. A lot of times you don't even need the tags if you're doing it right.
All right. Love it or leave it, third act, breakup, or dark moment.
Sometimes a story, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Depends on the couple and what you're trying to do with the story. Sometimes, like I had this great story and it had no conflict at the end. And the editor was like, well, we need a conflict. I'm like, why? They've accomplished all they need to accomplish. And the readers sometimes say, why are they fighting at the end of the book? They've already, so it depends, I think, on the couple. It depends on the story and what you're trying to achieve. And I'm not saying no to it. I'm just saying sometimes you want to do something different.
All right. Love it or leave it, always end with an epilogue.
No. Have I always ended with the epilogue? No. And I know some people say, well, if I need an epilogue and I need a baby, yeah, I need a life.
All
sometimes,
right.
sometimes, because I have a story where in Wild Rain where she didn't want any kids and there's no epilogue. And I got a lot because I do the book club on my Facebook page. And so there were some people that were asking, well, are you going to write a sequel where she's with these kids that she didn't want? I'm like, no, she didn't want any babies. She's not having any babies. People who have babies don't want babies. I'm like, come on now. But some people seem to think that you need an epilogue and you need a baby for it to be a true romance. And, you know, not everybody wants that. So, yeah.
All right.
Mm.
Love it or leave it. Always share research in your author's note.
Yeah, I do because I want people to, if they want to do more research, I want them to be able to find it and not wonder where I got this stuff from. I also put that in the first book because I kept getting these questions. Well, did Black people really do this? Yes, they did. Here's the sites. Go read the sites and come back and we can talk. So I think they're important. I borrowed that from from the icon Susan Johnson. She has footnotes in her early
Oh,
book.
wow.
Yeah. So I thought this is really cool because she did a lot of Native American stories and she had footnotes. And so I was like, okay, I need to copy her so that
Yeah.
I can, help people find out more information on whatever the subject is. So I did not invent that. I sort of borrowed it from Susan
Well,
Johnson.
that's fascinating. And it's interesting to have the idea of footnotes in fiction.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and then are there any other romance rules I didn't ask about that you break?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've done just about everything. I've broken all the rules.
And you're still standing.
I'm still standing. Books are still standing. I don't think anybody has ever done an orgasm on the first page like
Yeah,
I
I
did
think
with
I think
Billy and Archer. Not Archer. Billy and what was his Andrew from Destiny's Surrender? One of those. Captives. No, Surrender. Yeah. Captive was the pirate book. I've had a heroine shoot people a couple times.
hmm
Generational. I think, I don't like secret babies, but somebody told me that I did write a secret baby book. And I realized I did, even though I don't like secret baby books. But I was
So
like,
you
it's
broke
not
your own rule.
a. I did. I did. I was like, no, I didn't write a secret baby book. They were like, Miss Bell, this is what happened in this story. Is that a secret baby or not? I was like, oh shit. Yeah, I guess it's a secret baby. But
Well, I think you were saying that you don't always understand or have a feeling for the legacy that you've created for this genre. And I would say part of it comes from the fact that you have broken rules and shown us that these rules can be broken and it can still be a romance.
yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
in fact, it can be a better romance for it.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that. I'll send you a check for that. Check's in the mail, babe.
Well, I want to thank you very much again for coming on. Are there any specific plugs you want to make? Do you want people to follow you, sign up for your newsletter or follow you on a social media or anything?
Oh, okay. Newsletters, I'm terrible at it. I can hear my assistant screaming at me from North Carolina about getting the newsletter. But I do have one. It's very infrequent, but you can sign up on my website, beverlyjenkins.net. You can follow me on Blue Sky. I left the Hellmouth after the election, and
Good.
the romance community on Blue Sky is amazing. We have rebuilt Romance Landia. Facebook, I have 1, 2, 3 pages and a fans of Beverly Jenkins page that you can hook up with, and they have great fun and they do all kinds of stuff, giveaways and all kinds of stuff. So follow me. That's why I can never get a book in on time. I'm too busy playing on social media. So, so
All right, well, I will put links in the show notes so listeners, you can hop on over and click through.
thank you. Thank you.
And thank you. This has been amazing. I am so honored to have been able to ask you all my questions.
Well, thank you for having me, and we should
Yeah.
do this again sometime.
Let's, please.
Okay.
That's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the Historical Romance Sampler wherever you listen, and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Until next week, happy reading.